Hello and welcome back to the Dodgeball Radio Games Club. This is the Game Pass Games Club, the second one. Last time we all picked some games from Game Pass, and we played them all, and we're going to talk about them.
Yeah.
Ready?
This
Everyone
time we
excited?
all pick a club.
As always,
Yeah.
I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Brett,
Hello.
Alex,
I ate a D8 earlier today.
Wyatt,
Let's have the water down, and then you had to just put that in last minute.
and of
How
course,
dare you?
myself, Ryan. So, without further ado, let's get started. Does anyone have a game they're burning to talk about first, or I'm going to start calling on people? Great. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the Gunk first, because I listed it last in the title, and that's the order I read it in first. So, time to talk about the Gunk.
Or like junk. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad.
Good way to start us off,
Sorry.
Wyatt.
When I started playing the game, I thought of that joke immediately, and I had no idea whether it was good or bad, and I wanted to say it regardless of whether
It just
was
came
good or
out
bad.
anyway.
Hey,
Yeah.
The filter was
it's quality
gone.
content.
Yep.
Ugh.
All right. So, for people that haven't seen this before, what we did is we played about an hour to 2 hours of 4 different games on Game Pass that we all picked. We're going to have a whole set of that next time we do this as well. So, that's the format for this. So, these are first impressions. They are not, we play the whole game. So, if we say something that you don't like, know that it is from, unless someone really went ham and finished the Gunk, which I think, Alex, did you finish the Gunk?
I did. I
You
did
finished
play
it.
all
Nice.
the gunk.
So unless someone
Nice.
decided they wanted to finish the game, mostly these are going to be first impressions. And spoilers for those first 1 to 2 hours are on the table. So if you want to go in completely blind to any games that we're going to talk about, keep that in your mind. But generally, that's not going to be, I think, an issue. So go ahead, Alex. You finished the Gunk. You want to give us
I
the
finished the
pitch
Gunk.
of the Gunk?
I slurped up all the gunk with
Good.
my vacuum hand. I wanted to go first, and I wasn't
That's the
prepared.
pitch. We're done. Next game.
well, So it's very very interesting.
I think we broke
it's-
out
yeah.
the screen.
Yeah.
No, the
Yeah.
gunk broke, Alex.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Very interesting visual stylization too. The color scheme and the shape language works
Like almost
pretty well
puppet
for all the
people.
characters, and
Yeah, puppet people.
puppet people. Yeah, all the there's.
How
really
much
am
were
broken
you
today. This is
enjoying
a horrible
yourself
start.
the whole time?
I think I was. There was maybe one section where movement just got frustrating because you were
How
forced
long
to
do you think
walk
it
and
took
trudge.
you to finish?
To finish the game, and I think I 99%ed it or something. I missed sucking up one resource somewhere.
Well,
Um,
we're gonna take your completion card away from you.
yeah, yeah. I think it took me about 10 hours, 9.5 to 10 hours.
So not too long of a game. Yeah, I think it's a good thing. So I played probably around 2.5 hours of the Gunk, and hit a point with it where I was just. I think part of it is that I had recently played Luigi's Mansion 3. And so I had a similar control scheme in my hands more recently and started to get very aggravated with the Gunk because
It wasn't as
no.
polished.
No, I actually think the Gunk was
Or-
very polished. It just had an issue of you don't really get anything new. You're kind of just the entire time sucking up pools of goo, which was entertaining for
Yeah,
about
it's-
2 hours, but after that to me
You-
it started to fall off.
Yeah, you suck up the goo and resources. That's about it. There's a couple different resources for crafting upgrades to the gauntlet, but yeah, goo and rocks and or organic matter.
Yeah, I will
Or
say the
little
world
creatures
itself is beautiful.
sometimes.
Very good
Yeah.
environmental design.
It's a
Good
super
character
pretty
design
game.
as well.
Yeah.
I like the design of the main character quite a bit.
Really
I like
good
the
voice
design of the
acting
characters.
too.
I ran into
I
some
wanted to
issues.
say that.
Go ahead.
I was shocked to hear not just voice acting, but good voice acting.
It is very good voice acting. I have
Yeah.
a however though. You say it solder not
Yeah.
solder. You say solder.
Yep.
You are
Yep.
two people that are engineers for a living. That's not like okay, it looks like it should be solder. Like you say that in like second grade when you see the word for the first time. I would hope to God that when you're like writing it in a script of an aspect of these characters' lives that is probably very important, considering that one of them has a robot hand and would probably need to work on it because they do in the game. You should probably say solder right. And if it was like one time, then I probably would have forgotten and I wouldn't even care. But it's like over and over again. It's like it got to the point where for me it was like, this voice acting is really good, but shut up because it sounds like you don't know what you're talking about, and it's really weird.
I'm personally addressing the gunk now. You heard it from Brett. You've been served.
Yeah. Oh, I love Kurt.
Yeah,
And also,
good robot buddy.
with about the hour that I played, I really liked their their kind of back and forth, their dialogue. I thought it was very like snappy. It is they're very likable characters, and every time you get a little bit into like maybe they go into like a past story or a past job or something, I was always interested to hear what they had to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, going back to what I was about to mention earlier, so I like the character designs a lot, but the first time I like looked at their faces, I had a very visceral reaction to because they don't look human, which I don't know if that's an intentional design choice.
It's almost Psychonaut stylization.
A little bit, yeah.
It's almost,
like it's almost
but
that. But...
I think maybe something was happening with the textures on my screen, but it made them look like plastic, which felt
I got that
very weird, and it kind of gave this odd sense to the character design in that the characters didn't quite feel like they felt in place with the environment around them, which was a lot more almost like stylized and almost like No Man's Sky-esque in the type of vistas that it has. So that was like my one gripe with the art style, is that the character faces specifically looked very like rubbery compared to like the rest of their gear and the materials on everything else.
And they moved weird too. I noticed that when it was like focusing on them talking, like the lip flaps and just like the facial animation was really strange.
It looked like a puppet. It literally looked like
did,
just their bottom chin was just.
Which is it's strange because like we keep saying, like the rest of the game is just really, really, really nice looking. Like it's just a super well stylized game. It's another one of those games as of late we're getting a lot of games that feel like they're just right off the concept art sheet.
Yeah.
And it just it looks so great. In that way, I got a lot of not like the main vibes from Guardians of the Galaxy, but some vibes from Guardians of the Galaxy, where you're running around this kind of like platformy-esque world that looks like it's from concept art, and it's super like stylized environment.
It's like linear, but it feels open because they did a really good job making the layout feel like it's guiding you to a specific point without making it feel super linear. It's very nice.
And specifically the concept art, that's all the cool concept art that never actually made it into the game.
Yeah.
I think that is an interesting point with the facial animation stuff, because that's a really cool detail to have in a game, especially in an indie game, right?
Yeah, all of these are indie games that we're talking about.
Yeah.
They might have been published by Microsoft, but they are small teams. I think it's a better way to put it.
It's a very minor detail, but it's very noticeable, so you have to get it right or otherwise.
I think it stands out because the game was marketed really heavily at the Xbox like Series X showcase event a while back. It was put right up next to a bunch of other things. So I think a lot of people might have gone into this with expectations that were out of line with the budget this game had. Would be my
they might have been thinking it was more of like a look at what this $400-$500 system can do, and not what it is, which is more like not I wouldn't say that it's like technically the most impressive thing, but from an art style perspective it shines. And I think this
felt a lot like a passion project for one of the devs.
Yeah, for sure.
Would be my guess as to where this idea came from. I did start to have a problem with the voice acting of the characters, and I think this was a bug and not the main thing, but the mixing and mastering for their voices sounded very different between the two different characters.
Mixing and mastering?
like the finish.
I didn't
on
notice
it.
anything.
So it sounded like, I think that's why I think it was a bug, because I went back and looked at someone playthrough to see if I had like missed something, or like a setting, but it just sounded like, I wonder if this was set up to be played on a specific audio system that just something was incompatible with my computer. But the mechanic character who's stays at the ship all the time had a very weird sounding voice on my end. So I was wondering if that was like a thing that other people had, or if it was on my end. But that might have been just on my end.
No, I didn't notice anything. Seemed fine to
Yeah,
me.
me
For
neither.
once, Wyatt doesn't have a bug.
Look, his curse has
It's
been
contagious
transferring
now.
to me recently, and it's pretty rough.
Thank God. Thank
Oh.
God. Get it away from me.
Yep. All right. Anything else to say about the Gunk?
I really like the UI. It has that kind of like
yeah.
like
I agree.
lo-fi sci-fi kind of look to it.
Yeah.
And it's also very unobtrusive. Like, there's not a whole lot of UI when you're just walking around. And
Oh,
and I love the look of when you're scanning something. It's got that like grid, and it's got like the little scanning light, and it tells you like what it is and all these different properties about it. I thought that was really fun. I love having that in a game, even if it's like not super useful and a lot of the info they tell you isn't super useful. It's fun to like go up to something and scan it and then like see all these different properties. It's just a nice little feature to have.
I think interacting with the sucker and blower, it felt really good. There was good feedback on it.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially, I loved, there's a bit where you start having to like fight some enemies, and you can like suck them up into your little vacuum and then shoot them back out like a projectile. That was very fun.
Yeah.
It felt a little clunky to me. There were times where I was like, okay, this is kind of working and it was fun, but there were times where I was like, I don't know, it doesn't feel quite.
It did stop working for me
Right,
at about
for
the 2 hour and 15 minute mark. That's kind of part of the reason why I stopped, is at that point the combat had not gotten any more interesting than that, and they kept doing it. But at the first like time they did it, I think it was really entertaining.
There's one long range enemy that shows up after the little guys, that loves to snipe at you from high up places, and the camera isn't too good at finding them and seeing them. So
The
just off screen,
camera-
you'll be absolutely sniped, and it's fun because you get to like, you can stun them by shooting their own projectiles back at them, and then you have to rip them up out of the ground. But like, they don't move; they're rooted, so you have to get right up next to them, suck their head into the glove, and then move the character back to pull them out of the ground. That was a fun bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's the same kind of like satisfying interaction that you have in like Slime Rancher, where just you have that gun and Slime Rancher, and you're sucking everything up into your little pack, and it's really satisfying, and you get that same kind of satisfaction here. I think maybe I don't think it's done quite as well, because I think it's a little bit more satisfying from a first person perspective than a third person perspective. But
Especially
again,
if you compare
taps
it
into
to
that.
like Luigi's Mansion, I think is the only other game that really has that sort of exact style of combat where you're sucking things into your vacuum and then spitting them out. And I think Luigi's Mansion does it a lot better. So in comparison, it ends up looking a little bit worse. But the important consideration there is that Luigi's Mansion is made with Nintendo money behind it. So that it's gonna feel a lot better no matter what. Yeah, I had fun with this. I think I'd recommend people try it out, especially if you already have Game Pass. But I don't think this game is a reason to get Game Pass if you don't. So
no,
that's kind of where I'd lay with it. And I probably wouldn't have wanted to pay like $20 for this. I think at 15, it's probably a much better proposition. But
and go into it having, at least in like the amount of time that I played, it was a lot more like relaxed and chilled than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe just like the marketing, or maybe just like the title itself kind of implied it would be something different, but it was very just like relaxing, because like you have this like these nice like sort of chill music tracks that are going along at the same time, and it was very like
you are definitely right about the
it was very
marketing,
calming,
because the marketing was the first trailer they did was like a very dark, almost I would say Destiny style trailer of talking about the Gunk encroaching on the world or something. They had like a couple of action sequences in it, so I think that might have been a little bit misleading.
That is
a
not
very
what
calm
this game is.
This is a
at
relaxing
all.
game. This is not a game you play to, go hardcore. This is a game you sit down with a cup of tea and play for a while to relax.
Or a big old water bottle.
Definitely just water in there, Wyatt. All right, how about Alex and Brett, what are your recommendations, not recommendations for the Gunk?
Um, I'm kind of in the same boat with everyone else. Don't get Game Pass for it. However, this is like the perfect Game Pass game,
Yeah.
where it's like I wouldn't play this normally, but I have Game Pass, and I'm glad I tried it out because it's just like a super chill time if you have like just a day to do nothing, and it's like a rainy day or something. It's just, man, I just want to chill out with the Gunk.
It was a joy to happen upon.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
And
I'd almost
also
kind of
much
put it
better
in the
than my
same
last
category.
recommendation.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
God.
I would almost put this in the same like category as Genesis Noir, of a game that's just like calming by nature, and
Mhm.
probably something that would be a hard ask for a high price, but with Game Pass, I think it becomes very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So after that, let's move on to Raji. Since Alex, you completed the Gunk, and
Yeah.
Raji, you I believe proposed.
Raji was the game I proposed. I have no idea how close I came to finishing Raji. Um,
Yeah.
I did do more than 2 hours though. I think I got to 4.5 maybe.
So pretty
That's
good.
pretty
Um,
good.
it's
Yeah.
it's some pretty good feeling most of the time.
Yeah.
Minor parkour hack and slash combat.
I disagree.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Brett, which never happens, but here we are.
I think that it looks very pretty and very unique for obvious reasons. You have a
Voice acting
very
is also
like
very good here, I think.
voice acting is
Other
also
things
very.
like
It
that.
sounds and looks very good, but the combat and the platforming don't feel very good at all. It feels kind of mushy, very imprecise. I was kind of able to just like do the same like wombo combo over and over again and just kind of get through everything. And it didn't. It was a combination of it doesn't feel like it's asking a lot of me, but there's so much stuff to do, so I don't feel inclined to get all these upgrades. But also it's really clunky, so nothing feels good to do. So I'm
So
just gonna
Brett,
keep doing the
this is
same
the
thing
game
over
I
and
have
over.
the most notes for, because
Yeah.
I
Okay.
play a lot, and I mean a lot of third-person character action games. In fact, I
Yeah.
think I would say I've played every single one that's come out in the past like 10 years.
Oh God.
Raji,
Why?
Raji to me was really fun for like 20 minutes, and still until I started having to do combat that was bigger than just the little guys. Because the
Mhm.
combat system has this big issue where it's really hard to tell if something's going to hit you or if you're going to hit an enemy, and there's no like stagger. Unless you get a specific attack off, you can sometimes stagger, but not every time. So it's very confusing as to when you're going to have an opportunity to attack. There's a lot of like minor issues here that I think the combat system itself is fine, but there's so many issues with like the enemies being able to react to what's happening and you being able to react to the enemies that causes this problem where you don't know what's going on at any given moment. So it's
Yeah.
very hard to tell like when an attack's going to work, when you have the timing to do a certain thing. There was a boss fight very early on that I just kind of never got hit during compared to every other fight, and I didn't like try to dodge anything. I just didn't get hit.
Was this the one that was like right before the tree puzzle, like that first?
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. It was the first like
tree
actual
puzzle?
boss fight that you had. So it was, I don't know. I think this game might get better later on, but from the experience that I was having with the early enemies, this was really, I don't want to say bad because I do think it is still enjoyable, especially if you don't have a level of like familiarity with the genre that is verging on the insane.
That would be me.
Uh,
This is one of the very few hack and slash games that I've played. So I get,
yeah.
the combat does not flow at all, I'd say, but
No.
like
That's
individual combos are fun to pull off with the parkour bits, like running up walls and doing aerial swings and
that's
things.
what I wanted to say was that the reason it didn't work for me is that like the flow just feels very truncated. It feels off, right?
Mhm.
Like because I in the back of my mind while I was because I was playing this like very recently because I was playing a little bit of each just to like remind myself before
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
coming in, right? And I had been playing Horizon Forbidden West at the same time. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Horizon Forbidden West has a good melee combat system because it kind of doesn't. But what is really nice about it is that your different attacks kind of flow into each other in a very satisfying way. Almost no matter what kind of combo you're doing, even if it's feels very strange and sometimes
But
it
Wyatt,
doesn't
that is how
hit
action
enemies
character
and
action
stuff.
games work. All your attacks are meant to
Yeah.
flow into each other.
That's what I'm
good
saying. Is
good
that, like,
transition animations.
that's what I'm saying. Like it has these really cool animations where like Aloy's like flipping around and her spear's going all over the place. It's really cool. And it feels good to go from like one combo to another or one hit to another hit. I didn't get that sense in Raji like at all. It felt very like stiff.
Especially because it
And it
feels like
wasn't
when you transfer between the different types of attacks, you have like your regular attacks, your parkour attacks, your like wall jumping attacks, a whole bunch of different types. They all feel
which
separate.
were really cool. Which was really cool. Like I love running up the wall and then doing the like the heavy attacks. So you have these
You have,
like
like, this
really
big
wide.
sweep.
It was really cool.
huge
Or like
lightning AoE.
spinning around the pillars and like hitting a bunch of people. It was really
Yeah.
cool. I just wish it would be so much cooler if those like flowed into each other better.
Yeah, and
they
it also
just don't
had the same
here.
issue that a lot of like indie games will have when they have a combo system for a weapon, where you do not have enough time to do a combo before the enemy attacks you, so you will never see your full combo.
Mm.
You're gonna always want to do like the Dark Souls, like 2 hits, right? You get 2 hits in, and then you leave for the enemy to do their attack, and then you go back in, which works really well if the game is designed for it. But this has like a full combo system that you really don't get to use because the enemies are too unreactive to what you're doing. You can't like stagger them enough to get a full combo in, so it feels like wasted energy was spent on that.
Yeah.
And again, it's a shame because all of these different, like especially the parkour attacks, are so set up to flow into each other really well. And I'm picturing it in my head, and I'm like, if you like come out of a dodge into like a heavy attack, and then you run up a wall and do a light attack, and then you spin around, it's like chaining those together should feel really cool and like super like have this really nice flow to it, and it just
the whiteboard
doesn't.
design of this combat system was really, really good.
Yeah.
It just feels like they realized maybe the enemy
feels like
animations needed were too much.
It feels like a budgetary restriction
Yeah.
or maybe a time restriction more so than like,
Well,
talent
Wyatt,
related, I'd say.
with pulling off like the wall and pillar combos, did you? So the wall combos were pretty easy to hit because it's like hitting the broadside of a wall and jumping up. Did you have trouble like actually getting latched onto the pillars? Because I tried to do that all the time and I like failed almost 50%.
I had the exact opposite, actually. There were many times where, like, because you have to hit A to, like, jump up the wall, right? A is also the dodge button. So there were many, many times when Raji would just dodge right into the wall and nothing would happen.
Yeah, that's the
And
same
it was
issue I
very
had.
frustrating.
The pillars to me were a lot more reliable than if I did a wall attack. I'd have one of 2 things happen. I would dodge into the wall, or I would pull the attack off and it would hit above the enemy's heads.
Yeah.
That was a consistent problem too, which is a shame because that attack looks super cool. Very, very fun attack, but it didn't work as well as it should have.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that instead of just being like, oh, this game is like not fun or it's bad, I think it's like it's very just bogged down by not fun combat and bogged down because everything else that isn't the combat I really, really liked.
Yes.
Like the graphic style for the game and the cutscenes and how they're done in like this traditional like shadow puppet way are so cool.
Yeah.
So
And
cool.
obviously it's all like traditional like genuine stuff because I mean like it's Hindu mythology. I mean I don't know a lot of Hindu mythology, but it seems pretty like faithful just in terms of how much detail they go in. And obviously it's developed by an India-based studio, which is just cool to see. And like I said, I don't know too much about Hindu mythology, but this game made me want to learn more because I love mythology and things that are based off of it. And this seemed like a really just like cool and super detailed attempt at like tackling that sort of thing in a game, which I really wish there was more of. I know like especially when you go back into like older like God of War stuff like had that, but we really don't have that anymore. And I want more of that. And I especially want to see what this team does next because Raji got a lot of press compared to your usual just like first time indie game. And I really want to see what this team does next because if they come at another game with this experience and like that same unique approach. I'm just excited to see what they do
Because I also
it's
know
really
they
cool.
did design. There are more weapons in Raji that we didn't get to because they're further in the
There's
game.
Yeah,
there's
I got to the bow. I think
that's the are there more past the bow?
I believe there are more.
there's more spaces.
Maybe
Yeah.
not many, but I think there are a few more.
I do think while the UI also in like the menus itself looked really cool, it
Mhm.
wasn't too intuitive figuring out what I was upgrading.
Controlling it was very weird too. The buttons didn't make sense for what you were doing.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like if they make a game very similar to this, or maybe, a sequel or something like that, and they keep the exact same combat as it's like Ryan said, as it's designed via the whiteboard, and they just polish it out,
Yeah.
I would be totally fine with that. Because again, I'm connecting the dots in my head. I was like, this, like, if maybe maybe it was like they didn't have enough manpower, or like it was a budgetary
Yeah.
thing, but like if they can pull that off next time, or maybe someone else can pull that off next time, I could see that being a really engaging combat system.
Yeah, and I think the best compliment I can give this game is that I think I probably will finish Raji by turning the difficulty down to the lowest setting and just blasting through it, because the story is
and
really
stuff.
interesting and the art is
Yeah.
wonderful, the music is great. There's a lot of things about it that I really, really like. It's just
The puzzles aren't half
gameplay.
bad.
I like the puzzles too. Actually,
Yeah.
I do have to say the puzzles were fun.
Because
With,
there's
like,
this
the
whole
good
bit where
rotating
you
picture
can
disc.
there's like a bunch of murals on the wall that tell the story of the goddess whose weapon you're using.
Yeah.
And you can like totally skip past all of it, but it was so interesting. I just read every single one of them. Like, this really cool
absolutely.
narration. It was great. Yeah.
And sometimes it's a good like convergence of puzzle and art style, because that first tree puzzle where you're spinning the masks around,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Not only like when you get closer to figuring out where a piece goes, you can see the rest of the environment around you like slowly rebuild itself. And not
That's
only does
really
that
cool.
look super cool, it's also a nice hint as to like to tell you whether if you're going in the right direction or not.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah. So I think a lot of things about this game probably make it worth trying.
For sure.
If you
yeah.
like the story, I would suggest just playing this on the easiest difficulty and moving through it, because the combat is not greatly balanced. It's not the kind of thing where it felt like when I had it on the harder difficulty, it was just enemies that were sponges. So it wasn't really particularly fun.
But definitely look out for what this studio does next.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
Any other thoughts about recommending, not recommending? I know this game's available on Switch. Might be a good platform to check it out on, especially.
Which is where I originally played.
It might be
I believe
easier
this
on
game is
controller.
only $20 and not
I think so.
more expensive, which is definitely I think the best price point out of the games we've been
I wouldn't
looking
go
at so
anywhere
far.
above $20 for it, for sure.
But I also would not feel cheated at $20, I think.
No,
especially if you're
absolutely
not
not.
going in for the combat. If you're going in for the story, I think you'd be in for a good time.
Story and absolutely the art style, I'd say would be worth it.
Definitely.
Art is phenomenal. Okay. So after that, let's go ahead. I want to talk about Dodgeball Academia. Mix it up a little bit. Talk about a game that's not an action game. Well, kind of an action game, but Dodgeball
Only
Academia is a game that I looked at on the Xbox Game Pass store page. It was just like, oh, this looks goofy. Let's put it in the next Game Pass Game Club. It is one of the better sports games I think I've
It's
ever
so
played.
Yeah.
It's
It
so
is
fun.
really good.
Yeah.
It's a
your favorite
JRPG
parry
dodgeball
mechanic?
game. It plays like a shonen anime where you're going around collecting teammates to participate in a tournament in the starting section. Of course,
the character design reminded me very much of like Scott Pilgrim, and
it's very like
Yeah.
Randy
Double
O'Malley's
Fine
art
almost in a way
style.
too.
Yeah,
It's got that Double Fine flair. So I think super cool premise to start with. The combat works really well, which I think is something that's super important for this. Is I never had any issues actually executing things. And when you get other characters in your party, they play very differently. Even though they use the same buttons and everything, there are different ways that they handle. You have a girl who can do a counter, but if she throws the ball normally, it like slowly goes and then speeds up. But if you do the counter, it's like a lightning fast kickback. So it's a very cool system where you're kind of encouraged to play her very differently than the other character. So
I mained her just so I could have the immediate parry.
the immediate parry is very fun.
It was that, and then I also like, because I was having a little trouble with the timing, I went to main the blue girl because you can charge up the parry.
Yeah.
Mm.
I do think it's a very interesting combat system because all the fights are dodgeball matches. Of course, it's very like
It's
feels like
so
playing
fun.
Yu-Gi-Oh or something, right? Where you walk up to someone and they go, "Let's have a card game, right? Let's have a
Yeah.
battle." You just go to a random dodgeball court and beat up other students. It's very
I
good.
love that there is a school for dodgeball.
It's great.
Oh,
They
it's
take it so
great.
seriously.
Yeah.
It's
I'll also
awesome.
say this game
Oh, man.
very short, so I get the feeling it's not going to outstay its welcome. I believe the like regular beat it time is around 6 to 8 hours. I think every
Maybe. I
episode
don't
is about
know.
like an hour and a half long, and there's 5. So yeah, I
Oh.
think
Oh, I think I'm on 4. Crap. Oh no, I'm almost done.
yeah, this is one of those games that I am definitely going to finish this as soon as I have Elden Ring
Same.
not immediately looming over me. Unfortunately, this was the game I played last of the ones that we did. So I started playing this one a week before we were originally going to do this, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to have time to finish this. I was
I
disappointed.
think
Rip.
something that I thought was really interesting that they added that I don't know if like other games with consumables do this, to my knowledge at least. They have like the like and dislike system for different food
Yeah.
items,
Yeah.
which
That's
is
like
really.
a
And then
Star Ocean Tales of thing.
like even the allergic option for some healing items too. I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Ooh, I didn't run into that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think Ballooney's allergic to pineapple pizza.
Good old
Something like that,
Balloony.
I think.
Of course
Yeah.
he is.
I definitely think this is one of the ones that's a gem and really should, if you have Game Pass, you should check this out. There's nothing else quite like it, I would say. It really
Yeah,
gave me
sweet.
the vibes of like Super Mario Golf if it had a
How much-
proper good story mode.
How much is it to buy?
I believe it's like 20. Let me check. I'll make sure I'm not giving the wrong number here. I don't think it's expensive.
I'd recommend
So-
buying it. I'd recommend buying it even if you don't have Game Pass.
Yeah.
Super
It's
tiny
$25,
detail.
so it is a little bit more.
I think it's worth it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Super tiny detail. This is like the
Mhm.
dumbest, smallest thing, but you start to notice these things.
We're here to
but
nitpick, Wyatt. This is the nitpick
we
podcast.
Are, we
Yeah.
are. This is a good thing. So it's not necessarily nitpick, but it's a detail that I love. There is, I cannot speak to the importance as someone who's made some like smaller projects with a lot of scrolling text. How important that sound is when you have scrolling
Yeah.
text.
Yeah.
It seems like such a small thing, but like when you have a nice satisfying like it's great.
Especially when it
Sure.
changes between characters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My nitpick, or not nitpick, this is more of a larger problem actually for me. So like the combat was definitely a good challenge. It wasn't too frustrating at points. Um, I have had an insane amount of trouble triggering alts
Hmm.
or
They are-
ultimates.
They
Like I'll
do,
press the button and it will not do it.
because sometimes it requires a lot of setup, because you have to fill the bar, and then especially with
You have to have a ball in your hands, right? To be able
yeah, you
to
have
do
to have
it.
the ball in your hands, and then with Balloony especially, I didn't know the first time that it was like you have to be in his little AoE thing, and it's a very small AoE circle for healing.
One of his
Uh,
upgrades is it kind of increases in size, but not by
That's
much.
good.
I think it's more just getting used to it. It felt to me like the same system you see in I'm trying to remember the game, but I played a JRPG fairly recently that's a few years old, and in it you had the same kind of thing where you had to trigger conditions to hit an ultimate attack, and it just kind of became a little bit overbearing because you just would never see them in most fights, and it was just it felt very arbitrary in a way. I don't think I had quite that problem with Dodgeball Academia, but I get where you're coming from with that issue.
And so I was mainly using Balloony's alt because I needed to heal because I was still getting hit from stuff. And oh my god, it's the type of dodgeball where it's zoo ball, where or jail ball, whatever you call it when you
Yeah.
played it in middle and
Well,
high
there's
school,
different modes.
where
There's different types.
the people
Yeah.
go behind you and
Yeah.
they can hit you from behind. And I could never dodge those because there were
I
still
love it.
enough people on the other side where I had to go, "Hey, Balloony, heal people, please. I'm pressing the button.
My
Just
favorite
do it."
moments in
No,
the game
I'm gonna die now.
were in the jail ball matches where you're playing with the counter girl, like Mina, I think is her name. And
Yes.
you just prevent
don't
them
get
from
it.
ever getting to your back line, and I think that was very, very fun. It's very satisfying to pull that
Yeah.
off. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of like surprising amount of skill in the fights here.
Yeah.
It's definitely not like a super high skill ceiling, but I do think you're gonna have a good amount of engagement with this combat system, especially over a regular JRPG like turn-based system.
Mhm.
And it's also never too difficult. I never had a bit where it got too insane, aside from like the fight that you're supposed to lose. So
Right.
Some of the daily challenges, I don't know about that. Some of those got pretty hard.
I mean, those are the challenges. Those are there
The
to be hard.
challenges.
I would say rephrase it to be that nothing on the main path that you have to do was too challenging.
Yeah.
Although I did get very unlucky the first time you like form your team and have your first match as a team. I just for some
the
reason
tournament?
not the tournament, just before
I could.
when you first fight little boxhead man, and it's him and his
Yeah.
team, and he's supposed to be really bad. He's not very good. For some reason, I just completely mistimed every single catch that I tried to do and died
Oh.
like 2 times. On that very easy fight.
I've really enjoyed this game. I have not won a single one of the tournament matches first time around, and I should not be in the tournament.
I mean,
Well, 'cause that's the thing,
you're
if you-
able to retry them, so
If you miss like one like parry or catch or whatever, and your timing gets like that much off, it's just your whole like inner
Yeah. It
clock is
spirals.
just one tick off, yeah, and you got to reset after that because it usually just it in my practice at least, it definitely screwed me up to the point where it just killed me too.
Suddenly, I'm surrounded by 12 balls, all heading directly for me.
Yeah.
we've been talking about the gameplay a lot. I do also want to give special mention to the art style here. I think this game looks
Yeah.
excellent. It's got kind of a like almost that 2.5D setup where
Paper Mario 2
yeah,
and 3
very
Paper
Paper
Mario,
Mario.
yeah.
That's the right way to put it. We have your animated like 2D characters on this very loosely 3D world. And I think it works very, very well. You have
Yeah.
some excellent environmental design and especially the character design. Very, very good.
There was
Did
a
you
moment
guys-
for me where I was like, oh, these like the 3D environments look a little bit too like plain almost. But then as I kept playing, I was like, no, it actually fits the like the 2D character designs a lot.
Did you
more.
guys figure out or get to a point where you could open up the locked boxes yet? Because I haven't.
No,
I
I
did
didn't
not.
get there yet. No.
Maybe that's like a post game.
It's like, I wanna
New
find-
game plus.
I want to find out what's in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this and Raji are the two that I had. Even though Raji, I did not like the gameplay nearly as much as this, as I had a lot of issues with the gameplay. I think here they're the two games that are probably most worth your time from
Mhm.
what we've talked about so far. Of like very interesting experiences. Not to discount the Gunk, but I think the Gunk is probably the closest to what like a 7 out of 10 on this list is. So
Probably, yeah.
yeah, I think Dodgeball Academia was just a really special game. Because it's the kind of thing I feel like this would kind of abjectly fail if it were not on Game Pass. I think it would have a hard time pitching itself to people. Because Dodgeball is, of course, not the most popular sport. So if you're going for like the
What?
sports fan base, you're
Oh.
not gonna.
Oh, the sports fan base.
yeah, the like FIFA, Madden gang.
Mm.
You're not gonna get a ton of people interested in it from that angle. JRPG fans are very picky.
Dodgeball is better than
And most
literally.
of them probably got schooled in dodgeball anyway,
Yeah,
so
most
they
of them
probably
probably
don't want to
have
think
bad
about it
taste.
anymore.
Dodgeball is literally better than any other professionally played sport.
Oh, I wouldn't
Please
have
add
it
me.
any other way. I do think Dodgeball works
I
great.
don't know. Frisbee's pretty great, but
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brett, I was thinking the entire time you can make wrestling game. Exact same theme, exact same story. Just replace the dodgeball matches with wrestling matches. You could totally do it. I hope that's their next project.
You think you could still do it
Yeah.
in the same art style? Or
Yeah,
would it
I was just
still
absolutely.
gonna
3D?
say, it's got to be just as wacky because I really like, I don't know, it was super charming to me just how 'cause you see so many games that have like that like just kind of Western cartoon style, and it's just like, oh, this is the person's art style, and it's just like pretty normal, like everyone has like normal proportions or whatever, or it's like trying to copy off like anime visually or something. But this was like, I mean, we've compared it to like 500 different things already, but like Brian Lee O'Malley, super early like Dragon
Yeah.
Ball stuff where everyone's just like super like mushy and round and chibi, and everyone's got like different shapes and like weird like the
The
whole
eyes are all
rainbow
unique.
of like
You know what?
yeah,
Amazing World of Gumball. That's what it
Yes,
reminds me
yeah,
of.
Very
Definitely.
similar. All right. Any other thoughts about Dodgeball Academia?
I said this before we went live, but I'm gonna say it again. I'm pretty sure Dodgeball Academia was like written by Alex and I unknowingly.
There are so many puns in it.
It is very
Oh.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do, again, I think wholeheartedly recommend Dodgeball Academia. It's the one I don't think
And
I
when-
have
and when-
anything negative to say about.
And when I say that, I mean that in the best way and the worst way at the same time.
yeah.
All right. We're moving at a good clip. We're done with Dodgeball Academia. It's time to talk about our last game, One Step from Eden. And I saved this to
we're
last
ending on
because
a
I think we're going to
bad
have a
note for
discussion
me.
about this.
We're ending on a great note, actually.
I don't know how you feel about this, Wyatt, but I was said that this could be a 50-50 split between the between the
It
group
will
here.
be. I think near 100% guaranteed.
To be honest, I think I'm going to be kind of in the middle of the road, to be honest. Which is a great, I'll just start then.
Go for it.
I thought the my computer keeps muting itself for some reason. It's very annoying. I thought the gameplay, the combat was really, really interesting. I don't play a lot of like card building games, so I wouldn't really say it's I'm super knowledgeable in that area, but like having your spells basically be a deck of cards playing out in real time on a grid is just super interesting to me. I loved unlocking. I love doing a combo where it's like, okay, you're using a lot of like you're taking up the enemy space with spikes or fissures or something, and then going for like a really powerful attack when you've got them cornered or something. Like that
To
was always really
build
satisfying.
Give people a little bit of
to me.
context for this game because I do
I
think
just kind of went
we're
right
jumping
into it
directly
I was
into
having.
it.
We are. I was having technical problems, so I got really confused. Sorry.
Well, we'll get back to you in a second, Wyatt. I do want to outline because you're talking about the card building
Sorry.
mechanics. So
I got
Yeah.
distracted.
I want to outline
got
what the
distracted.
game is for people that haven't played it. It's a roguelike, very much a very action-heavy roguelike with a very high like execution ceiling. It's very much a skill roguelike. It's inspired by the Mega Man Battle Network games. That is where it takes the gameplay from. So it is on a like 3x4 or 4x4 grid that is mirrored. So you have your team on one grid and the enemy team on the other grid. Usually you're just controlling one character. There's some weird circumstances where there might be two. There's a deck of cards that you end up building out as your run goes. It follows like the FTL layout of pathways that you can progress through to kind of pick what enemies and whatnot you're facing. In format, this is very functionally similar to something like Slay the Spire, but gameplay wise, it is very different, very like action heavy. All right, continue, Wyatt.
Sorry, did you say something? My computer keeps muting itself for some reason, like on its own. Like my hands are gonna be up, and it's gonna. My volume dial keeps going down. What?
Oh no.
I'm not doing anything.
It doesn't want to hear his mild take.
His middle of the road
My
takes
lukewarm
are
middle
not
of the road.
wanted.
So yeah. Anyway, as I was like, stop doing that. Oh my god. So so as I was saying, the gameplay was a little too quick for me. I felt like an old man sometimes, where it's like, okay, wait, what spell do I have? Wait a minute, what can I do with that? Wait, what's going on? It was, I think with time, it's something that I could definitely get used to, but it was very quick, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit. Where it all falls apart for me, I hated this game's visuals so much.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I'm the
Oh
same
my
boat there.
goodness.
Oh,
One
this is an
reason-
additional
felt like-
50-50
Oh my
split.
goodness.
Because I felt like the UI felt like a complete disorganized mess.
Oh yeah, it was
sometimes.
garbage.
Oh my goodness.
I
And
could not.
I can't
understand. It
imagine
added
being
to
so
complete
wrong.
confusion.
oh man, it was to the
Oh.
point where I didn't really understand what was happening for the first like 20 minutes. I was so lost and confused.
So,
I
do
was
you think it's an issue with the UI
"What's
itself, or with the lack of tutorial? Because I do think it doesn't necessarily
I'm gonna say it's
tutorialize
both.
the UI very well.
I'm gonna say it's both because they do just kind of throw you right into it
Yeah.
without really like maybe being in a
That's
battle and slowing things down and be like,
They do
okay,
the
this
roguelike
is
thing, and you're
here,
gonna learn by
this
dying.
is here.
that's the biggest mistake that they made for me, was just not having barely any form of a tutorial. That's an instant turn off.
But no, I think this game is super ugly, and I don't think the pixel art itself is. I just like
Why,
What a weird take.
Wyatt, I'm with you on this. Don't
What?
pay attention to them. I'm with
What
you.
kind of
weird take.
crazy reality?
But like, so you're playing the game. There's part of it is that there's like 3 different art styles that are being mashed together that don't work well off of each other at all. You have like if you have a portrait of the character you're using, it's this really nice like drawn like 2D thing, and it looks really nice. The gameplay itself is like pixel sprites and like pixel art backgrounds and stuff, and then all of the menus are this kind of like clean, I made this very quickly in like Illustrator kind of look to it.
Oh, you wish.
Wow.
You wish.
And
With
it
the
just doesn't work well together. And like
Oh my goodness.
even with the character sprites, I feel like they're an unintelligible mess of pixels that could
I
be
thought
an
the character
background
sprites were
NPC.
fine. I thought the character sprites were fine, and I thought they were really well animated. But like, if you're looking at just like the battle screen, you have your grids, and then you have this really almost like just unappealing looking background. Like the pixel art itself for it is fine. It's just the way that it's placed in like the battle screen just feels really like
It's not a good ratio.
it feels like
of-
cheap mobile game, and that's such an insult. And I'm really sorry, but there's no other
Wow.
way I can describe it. It just everything felt so stop muting computer. Oh my god, just like everything felt really cluttered. And then when you got to the victory screen and you had to pick a card, it's like things were overlapping each other. And
Yeah.
it was a mess. And I was like, what is going on? Because when I'm actually in the game, it's fine and I'm having fun. And then I have to pay attention to any of the menus and it hurts my eyes.
Well, if you
Yeah.
like indie games, this game looks fantastic.
Oh my
Is
God.
the other side of that coin.
Yeah, I'm gonna say
I'm
this is Brett and I are gonna be on a very different wavelength from Alex and Wyatt with this game, I think. And this just goes to show games are very different things, and people like different things,
Jeez.
and that is okay. There is no problem with that, even if other people's
I'm
takes are
waiting for
very
a
bad.
giant butt to come in.
Now, that said, I think One Step from Eden is the game on here. I had already beaten One Step from Eden before we had this as a Game Pass game.
Oh.
So I got this game right after launch, played tons of it, picked it up again on my Switch when it went on sale one time, played more tons of it. I probably have around 100 hours in this game. It's one of my favorite
my.
roguelikes.
You're wrong.
No, you're wrong. All right, so let me go into why. I'm going to counter the art style argument first, I think. And I think, Brett, jump in here when you have additional
Yes.
to add. So, character animation-wise, I think the reason the characters are so, like, they're very low-resolution pixel art. Just enough to get the vibe of the character right, their color scheme and everything. But that's because they're very heavily animated. There's tons of animations that can happen.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff's going on all the time. Things are moving so quickly, you can't pay attention to what is happening if the art is more complicated than what's on screen. So I think there's
And
very
it's
much a
also
limitation.
It's based off Mega Man Battle Network,
Yeah.
so part of that is calling back to the pixelated aesthetic of the game that, I mean, there's really not an alternative to Mega Man Battle Network other than this, so that's the only thing that can call back to.
Yep. I never had an issue with the UI. I'm not going to say it's amazing, because I do think it is confusing to get to. You have like the things you can use to upgrade your cards and spells. Those are a little bit confusing to figure out where to use the first time you're using them, because you have to like open the menu in between different points and then go to the side, and then you have like the either delete a card or upgrade a card if you have the items. So that bit I think is a little confusing, because it's hard to know where in the menu you need to go to do that if you haven't found it already.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I never had any issues, especially with anything like
Oh, yeah.
overlapping or anything.
I like I am notoriously, if you've watched, I mean, if you've hung out with me, if you've watched any other episodes of the podcast where this has come up, I notoriously am not a fan of roguelikes to the point of almost just disliking the genre. And I do not like card-based games because I never got into them as a kid. And at that point, at this point, my brain is so heavily hardwired to just stupider things that I am not smart enough to do that. However, this was so much fun that I think I might have to rethink that a little bit because I don't know, it some combination of the like small 4-page tutorial at the beginning just being like, okay, here are the controls, you kill people and you move on the square, good job,
Do
you're
it.
smart enough to handle the rest, aren't you? And then that's crazy. I was because even if the things that it doesn't explain, it's a roguelike. You're gonna die and start it over anyway. But I honestly, I played 2 hours of this because I ended up playing it last night because I just ended up putting it off because I was busy with other stuff. And both hours were just full runs. I didn't have a run that was just like, oh, like a little piddly, like 10-minute, like I just got screwed. It was very satisfying to me because it still has that insane like balance where it's like super hard. And if you're not like, if you're like don't have like a hacker brain and the ones and zeros are just going crazy in your mind, you're going to get obliterated. But if you're just like, if you're getting into the flow state, which this game really feels like it promotes, you just like, you could just go super far,
Yeah.
even if you don't really feel like you're that great at it, which is really fun.
Just because the
Because in
bosses
my
are
experience,
designed incredibly well. These are some of the
yeah,
best like
yeah,
roguelike
it's
bosses there are all because they're all very unique. You get this option
Mhm.
whenever you kill them to save or kill them, so you can save
and
them
then you
and
earn
they'll
them as a
add.
character.
You earn them as a character once you beat them. Sometimes, you'll add them to your team, and they'll like show up occasionally to help you or give you items if you save them. If you kill them, you get a ton
Mhm.
of XP and move forward and get some more cards to choose from. And it can change. There are multiple endings to this game. When you get to the
Yeah.
end, you've got a whole bunch of options with every character as to what happens. It's very cool.
Yeah, the one it's not perfect for me. I do have issues. I think there's like for me because I don't know, I don't really know what kind of interpretation of what this game would be I had before playing it. But I have a bunch of friends that like this game, which is why I ended up recommending it because I wanted a reason to try it too. But I thought there would be more. I thought it wouldn't just be like play game and that's it. I thought there'd be more story than like characters says something once in a while, which is a little bit of a letdown for me because I tend to enjoy story in games, and especially now where we're at kind of
A
the
post
almost
Hades world.
standard, exactly the standard that Hades set, where it's like you just kind of expect there to be some kind of narrative through line, which there isn't. But it's not the biggest downside for me because the gameplay was so tightly designed. Um, and then not really like downside, but a nitpick that the one issue that I did have with the UI is that on your deck screen at the top, at least with the original, the first character you start with, I know as you get more, the amount changes. You have like a preference thing, and there's two question marks at the top. I thought that was just part of the UI, and it was like, oh well, if I get enough cards that are of like Earth Elemental, I'll get like an Earth preference, and I'll get like a 20% damage boost or something. No, you can pick those, like click on them
Yeah,
and
as
pick
soon as you
which
start, you
like
can pick what
thing.
cards you want to get.
Yeah, and it'll give you a higher chance of getting those kinds of cards.
You can even double up on the
And
same
that,
one if you want to super specialize.
yeah, that was the one thing for me where I was like, oh, I wish they said that. But at that point, so I was
I did
streaming
not
for
figure
someone
that
else,
out
and
until I
someone
beat
had
the
played
game.
the game.
I will say that was one of
Well,
the things I didn't figure out until I beat the game. I forgot about that.
I want to clarify as well. From a gameplay perspective, I actually really enjoyed myself. I do want to go back and play more. I don't know how much more of my eyes can take visually, but from a gameplay perspective, I did really enjoy myself.
Okay, this is where I'm the heel.
I am going to add.
From a
So
gameplay
before you
perspective,
trash everything about this, Alex, remember
this is just a me
solo
opinion. I'm
developer,
not trashing the game.
solo developer for this game as well. No team, nothing.
Okay, you can still have a tutorial that's well explained in a game.
it was.
That's where
Not
I'm
for me.
at.
Not for me. If I can't understand it, it's not well explained for me.
I mean, I
And
think
God,
the
the combat
honest.
is
Go ahead.
the combat can feel good if you can get into the flow state, which once again I was not able to, because I hate when games don't give you enough time to think about anything. So this just was not a game for me that I could enjoy. So
It is very fast
also
paced.
Yeah.
take like literally everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, because as a human that is with whatever my experiences were and all preferences before this, I have no way that I can enjoy this game.
Yeah, I'll add this is one of
Unfortunately.
the harder roguelikes that exists.
It's really hard.
Just on a base level, especially because a lot of the characters that you unlock afterwards are not like upgrades. They are different playstyles, many of which are harder than the default character. So that's an important thing to know going in, is that this game is not the kind of thing that's going to get progressively easier as you play it. It's very difficult. It's going to stay very difficult the entire time until you really know what you're doing. And yeah, they don't give you time to think about what you're doing. You got to throw those cards down as fast as possible, because otherwise you're going to die.
I just don't. That's not my learning style. I don't learn from being thrust into the middle of things.
Yeah, I think this may have just not been a game for you, unfortunately. Especially because the harsh answer, but the honest answer of what to do when a game like this has a tutorial that operates well for its target audience but doesn't operate well for you is look up a video. That's generally, I think,
I mean, like, you guys
progression of it.
really look like you enjoy it, and I want to enjoy games. I don't like that I can't enjoy things, like with how frustrated I get with Souls games and Hollow Knight and things like that.
I mean, sometimes it's just about like you need to have a certain temperament to enjoy these games. And I had the benefit personally of playing a lot of fighting games and getting constantly trashed all the time because I'm very bad at them.
Oh, that's another thing. I hate fighting games.
Which means
Like
I have a
the
very high
one-on-one
tolerance
type
for
thing.
failure in games. And I'm very almost masochistic in the games that I like to play. So, yeah, I think that's different perspectives going into this matter a lot. All right. Other thoughts on One Step from Eden?
I completely missed what you said because my computer muted itself again.
Other
Boy,
thoughts?
you gotta get that checked out.
Other
Yeah.
thoughts? I'm very happy that people were able to enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll say this game did very well for the solo developer, especially with the Game Pass deal, I think.
I think this would make a really good like Switch game.
That's why I played most
And if
of
this
it.
wasn't on, and I feel like because now it would feel weird like buying it for Switch because I have it on Game Pass. But it's like because I am interested in playing more of this game, I would want to do it on a Switch. I would just feel more like comfortable for me, I guess.
Yeah, I'll mention this game is also relatively old. It's from I think 2018, 2019. It goes on sale for $5 very often. So if you don't have Game Pass, this is still a game I'd recommend, especially if you're into roguelikes. If you're not into roguelikes, this is probably not a good starting point. It's very difficult and very fast-paced. Maybe, if you're like Brett...
If you're insane and stupid, maybe it'll work on you.
But at that point, try it on Game Pass. Don't try it on Switch and pay for it. So yeah, I have to wholeheartedly recommend this game because I put so many hours into it. I still haven't unlocked everything on my Switch, I don't think. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I love the art style. I love the way the combat works. All the cards are very imaginative. There's some very cool builds you can do. Music is incredible. There's like a trap build.
Agreed.
Where you can place down a bunch of turrets and then like push them into your enemy's side and blow them up. There's all sorts of cool things you can do.
Yeah.
What the did was cool. I wish I knew which one did what too. Because I was not given the time to be able to figure that out.
I mean, that just takes practice and like. And
they do give you a practice board before you move to the next thing to try things out on. Also,
yeah, it's very
there's
much
no
a game
time
that you
limit
have
or
to
anything.
understand what you're doing at a moment's notice because you will not have time to look at the button controls between rounds. So yeah. All right. Any other thoughts? Definitely not a game for everyone, but I think if you're gonna enjoy it, you're really gonna enjoy it.
Well,
I think this is one of those games with very little middle ground on.
Yeah, no, I mean, as much as I don't like
every time you say your grave gets deeper, are you sure you want this fate for yourself?
Wyatt, I like pixel art.
Honestly, it's how I feel. It's a hill I'm willing to die on. But I do recommend it because I do think the gameplay is a lot of fun. Once my brain can acquire enough CPU power to be on the same speed as it.
can't download more RAM, Brett.
I was this close to chopping the F-bomb, Brett. I was this close. But no, I mean, because again, it's something that I want to play more of. So I think it is something that I ultimately recommend, because I think definitely it seems like most people aren't going to be bothered by, the UI and the visuals like me. And I do recommend it just on like a gameplay level. So I do think it's definitely worth checking out. And if you don't have Game Pass,
Is dirt
I
cheap
think it's
very
still worth
often.
checking out. Yeah. Especially if it's, a couple of years old at this point.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. All right. So with that, we talked about all 4 games. We're going to be doing another one of these, presumably, in around a similar time frame of a month to a month and a half. These are much more lax than the regular podcast and when we do them. Mostly because we're playing 4 different games. We're trying to put a decent amount of time into all of them. As always, podcasts are going to be Tuesdays, 7 a.m. Eastern Time on the podcast platform of your choice. Game Pass Game Club will be available both in video format and in podcast format on the regular podcast page. So if you want to wait for the next one, it's going to be on the same page. All that good stuff. We'll catch you next time.
Oh, here's the D8.
Wait, if it's there, how did you eat it?
What a callback. And the drop. Oh my god, that's awesome. Oh.
Except for me, it's beautiful.
That's